Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh, holy Moses.
Hello, welcome to the RTÉ GAA Podcast. Mikey, Stafford and Rory O'Neill with you. We've been joined by David Tubridy to look ahead to the weekend's Allianz Football League action, the penultimate round of games, yes. And we're also looking ahead to the ultimate round of games into hurling afterwards with Ursula Jacob. David, how are you getting on?
Not too bad now. Good. All is good.
Yeah. It's all happening at the bottom of Division 2, David, and maybe these are the weeks when you're like, maybe I made the right decision to retire. It's grand. I don't think I need this dogfight in early March on Paddy's weekend in the rotten weather. Are you now happy enough with your decision, David?
No, not. It's just tough watching, I suppose, to see where they are at the moment, because I don't think Clare should be where they are. I think probably the game that really caught him was the Kildare game in Cusack Park. They left that after him big time. And that game, they would have been safe and they would have been home and hosed. But I think the games themselves, and they played Dublin in the following week, and Dublin pipped them as well. And I think that took a lot out of them going into the Cork game. And I just watching the game the last day, it looked like they were very dead in the second half when they came out against Cork. So it's disappointing. You always wonder, I suppose, if you keep thinking if I stayed on, would they be in this situation, or could I have helped any bit? Which is kind of the killing part. But no, I trust the boys. Hopefully they can get the job done.
You say they look dead in the second half against Cork. How beneficial is the rest week, David? Like in your experience, getting that week off. It's obviously at this time of year, I'd say it's filled with a fair amount of training, but I guess the expectation is you come into the next game fresher at least, or could you find yourself coming in just as tired after a 2-week block of training?
No, I suppose I don't think Clare would have went hard in 2 weeks, because they have a lot of injuries. Like they're missing their 2 starting midfielders, Darren O'Neill and Cathal O'Connor. Podge didn't play the last day. Keenan's only after coming back from month out with injury, and they're slowly getting players back in. And I think that's the problem above against Dublin. Like the starting 15 went hard for 60 minutes, and it just took a toll out of them. But I think these 2 weeks, I think it'll help Clare big time, and hopefully we can get a few of those injuries back in for Derry on Sunday. Yeah.
So Rory, just to refresh people of how the bottom of Division 2 looks. As always, it's pretty tight. Meath on 5 points in 5th place are probably, even though they've Dublin next, are probably safe-ish, or they're at least sweating the least. Clare have 2 points, but with a superior scoring difference to Kildare, who have 2 points, and Limerick have 1 point, which brings us to Sunday afternoon in the Gaelic grounds, with Kildare travelling to Limerick, who purged themselves with Ray Dempsey, shall we say. It seems the players weren't happy. Ray Dempsey stepped away, and Kerry man Mark Fitzgerald, formerly Kieran O'Reilly's player, is coming in for the rest of the season. This is do or die stuff for both these counties, basically.
Massive. It's in many ways, it's nearly the most significant game of Gaelic football across the whole weekend. It's part of a brilliant doubleheader, actually. Limerick and Wexford, I think, get the ball rolling at 1:45, and then you've got
Limerick, the footballers digging up the pitch.
Yeah, isn't that gas? Especially this time of the year with the amount of rain that falls. But let's get the footballers out when it's basically ploughed like a cow field. But but it is a good double header. Limerick Wexford first in hurling, followed by Limerick Kildare in the Gaelic grounds. So you'd imagine a big crowd. Hopefully they'll stay on, give the Limerick footballers a bit of support, because they will need it. Both teams scrapping for their lives. Huge game for Kildare. I mean, effectively, I think if Kildare lose this, I think that's them heading for the Tailteann Cup, given the fact they're on the same side of the draw in Leinster as Dublin at semi-final stage, which means their chances of potentially making a Leinster final will be, pretty risky.
It's also them doing a Cavan/Derry, dropping 2 divisions in 2 years, and
Yeah, and the funny thing about them is, if you go back to last year, they beat Dublin last year at home. They drew with Kerry at home. Their home form this year has been appalling. They were very unlucky actually against Tyrone. I think did that game either finish a draw, or maybe they were beaten with a last minute kick. Was it a last minute kick from Darren McCurry? Like, they showed very good form in last year's Division 1 league campaign, and you just would wonder, why has it fallen off a cliff so badly for them, given, I suppose it probably would be fair to say the standard in Division 2, just the hierarchical nature of league football. It should be lower. So it is a bizarre one, but Limerick showed, obviously there's been a change in manager, and they went out 2 weeks ago and put up a massive score against Meath. They'll have home comforts again, and it's a tricky game, really, really tricky game for Kildare, and a difficult one to call. They should win, but should have, could have, this is definitely one to keep an eye on over the weekend.
It's a puzzling one, isn't it, Dave? Because you'd know Limerick football as probably as well as anybody not involved in Limerick football proximity, kind of similar kind of leagues along a lot of the way through your career. You'd be bumping up against them a lot. The work Billy Lee did was phenomenal there. It kind of built on, kind of some good work that was done previous to him, and it was, particularly by Liam Kearns, obviously, as well. Ray Dempsey coming in, he was in the mix for the Mayo job, was obviously very well thought of for that, had a great backroom team together, like a serious operator. So this would have seemed like a good match, and they don't seem to have been simpatico or whatever it was. It didn't click. I think it was a surprise to most people on the outside that maybe people thought they would struggle in Division 2 or it would be a battle, but for it to go so badly and for Ray Dempsey not even to see out the league is surprising, I think.
Yeah, it's a strange one if the rumours going around it's the players that wanted him out, because I think it was something similar to Billy Lee as well, that it was kind of the players that said they'd enough of Billy Lee as well. So I suppose there's a lot of pressure on the Limerick players going out this weekend against Kildare, because they have to perform, because people will be just wondering, is it that you can't be sacking managers every few months and thinking it's the manager's fault. It'll be down to the players this weekend. It's a massive game. And just on Kildare, I think that the 2 weeks might help Kildare as well. You never know, the management and players might slash things out and see what the problems are inside the camp, and you'd never know, you might see a different Kildare team come out this weekend against Limerick.
We kind of really need to, Rory, don't we? Because their form has just fallen off a cliff, Kildare. They look, we've had a few people on this podcast, I think it was Kieran Whelan, who said he just had no idea what Kildare are trying to do. He said the style of play seems to be just it's a bit of a mystery to him. Anytime I've watched them a couple of times this year, and the tactic seems to be shoot from the sideline if you get a look at the goal, and their wide tally is through the roof, and they just
scandalous.
Yeah, and just after last year, where there was so much encouragement, Rory, it is baffling. It's baffling.
You I suppose, look, you just won't really know until after the fact what has gone wrong. They have still the opportunity to resuscitate their season. Dublin aren't the scary monster that they once were. If they can manage to stay out of the clutches of the Tailteann Cup, they can really put in some body of work ahead of the round robin stages for the All-Ireland series. And as we said before, we have to bear in mind, we're going to play that competition. There'll be 24 matches to get rid of 4 teams. So there's a very good chance they could make a last 12 still in the All-Ireland series, but their season probably needs to start Sunday, and it needs to start quickly. And they need to go down to Limerick and they need to go down and win, get the Kildare supporters back on side, get a little bit of confidence going in themselves, in the management, in the way they want to play the game. Hopefully we'll see Daniel Flynn from the start. Obviously he has been missing from some of the earlier games, and a big loss, but you can't pin your hopes in modern intercounty Gaelic games on one player. One player isn't going to solve all your problems for you. So I think it's a huge, huge game this weekend for Kildare and for Kildare football.
Yeah. The other game, well, you'll be keeping a very close eye on it anyway, David, is you're unfortunate. If Clare had Derry in the last game, you might be hoping for Rory Gallagher to play the 13 players in his squad who aren't first teamers and find 2 other players from somewhere. But as it stands, you're going up to Owen Beg. Derry need a point, and then they don't need to give a fiddlers about going down to Páirc Uí Chaoimh the week after. But if they were somehow to lose to Clare, not somehow, sorry, I'm not trying to wind you up. If they were to lose to Clare, they could go down to Páirc Uí Chaoimh, get beaten by Cork, and end up in Division 2 again next year, which Rory Gallagher, I think he throws his hat at it then. Like, he's just, the way he was speaking after the Dublin match, all he cares about is getting that one more point. So there's no chance of a demotivated Derry here, which at the moment looks like the only hope you have against Derry.
Yeah, we're kind of hoping to be promoted already, but no, it's as you said, it's Derry need that point, that 1 point, because it's like, as you said, they could go down to Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and like Páirc Uí Chaoimh, Cork, they're on a good roll at the moment. 1 game away from going up to Division 1, which they missed out in the last year.
Were they in exactly the same position this time last year?
Derry were,
They certainly need. I think they needed a point from Roscommon or Galway.
Roscommon, and I think something happened. Somebody was the Connacht teams were nice to each other,
which is rare.
Which is very rare. Yeah, but I went down to I think it was last game last year was Roscommon and Galway. And some decision, or was it Roscommon won?
Yeah, and I think was Shane McGuigan either sent off harshly.
He was sent off, and they had a late free, which was McGuigan territory, which they're kind of assuming he would have scored, which I think is a stretch, because it was still a good distance out, and it was missed. So there was some bad feeling in Derry about the way it all went down. Anyway.
Yeah, but no, I'll be up there. Myself, my father, will be heading up now Sunday morning, nice and early.
That's a good spin there. No, it's a good spin.
It's about 4.5 hours, I think. So
good roads all the way, of course.
Good roads all the way. Yeah, but
I'm going to RTÉ. It's a lot shorter. There's only half an hour up the road for me.
That's a bad. But no, I think Clare, like, it is going to be up. They're going to be up against the wall. But like this Clare team, like when you don't give them a chance, that's when they can hit big time. We've seen it down through the years when they needed wins, they've got the wins. Like
did you go up to Armagh one year, David? Where in a league game where you needed to win, did you turn Armagh over above in the athletic grounds? About 4 or 5
no,
years?
we drew with them in Newry that day. Yeah. But no, like we went up to Cavan, totally underdogs going up that day. We turned over Cavan, we've turned over our Tipperary last game of the season. It's come down to the wire a good few times for us, but listen,
it's the way you like it.
That's the way we like it. Nice tough battle. But as I said, if we get the few injuries back, I know Derry are Derry, and they're flying it. They're contenders for All Ireland this year, and they're
starting to pick up injuries themselves. So I think Benny Heron is gone, and we don't necessarily know for how long. Now, obviously, you'd imagine that young lad Lachlan Murray, who's impressed, he'll slot in, but they are running on a very skimpy squad. Derry, if they picked up, I mean, if anything happened to Conor Glass or Brendan Rodgers, it's a game changer for them. But that's not the case, obviously, heading into this weekend. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm surprised with it. Like, there's only 26 of a panel they have or something like that, which is they must have a second team or something like that where they can bring in players. It must be, because to go the whole year with only 26 players is touch and go really. But no, I'll be heading up on Sunday, and just hopefully, fingers crossed now, declare I'll take a point above in Owen Beg.
That's very good of you.
Yeah, just a point.
You take it now, I would say.
The two teams would be happy if we get a point each.
Yeah. Be like the old they've avoided that with the next World Cup. They're doing 4-team groups instead of 3-team groups, so we don't have shenanigans like that where you meet beforehand and agree on a draw. Harder to fix a draw in Gaelic football, obviously.
I think so. Yeah.
I'd like to see a game of Gaelic football where the two teams have agreed on a draw beforehand. It could be quite entertaining to watch.
There'll be always the one fella in the team that'll mess it up for everybody.
The one guy in white boots now who forgot what he was supposed to do. To Division 1, Rory, where it's actually, we're talking about the intrigue at the bottom of Division 2. There's a fair degree of intrigue at the bottom of Division 1 as well. Mayo look destined / doomed to make it to a league final the week before they play Roscommon in the Connacht Championship, and at the moment it looks like one of their Connacht neighbours are most likely to join them. At the bottom, you got Donegal on 3 points and looking a little bit hopeless on and off the field. God bless them. Monaghan on 4 points, with a marginally worse score difference than Tyrone on 4 points, and Kerry with a better points difference, but nonetheless on 4 points, than Armagh on 5 points. So you've got 5 teams there who can't relax too much, Rory. No. And the weekend fixtures include Armagh hosting Galway, which is on RTÉ, and you've got Kerry hosting Roscommon, which is on TG Cahir at 7:30, I believe, on the Saturday. Rory, Kerry need to win that match. That's kind of the long and short of it, isn't it?
And I think they will. And it's Austin Stack Park, truly Saturday night under lights. Everybody will be on a high, hopefully, after Ireland win the Grand Slam, which is an awful pity for Armagh Galway's sake, But no, I wouldn't see any other result in that. I think Kerry now need to kind of, need to get motoring. They've had a bit of a stop-start campaign thus far. They lost to Tyrone the last day, but they always lose to Tyrone. There's just something like Tyrone seem to always be up for Kerry in a way that maybe they don't necessarily seem to be able to get to go up for other teams. So I wouldn't be reading a huge amount into that from either side. I think everyone is saying, Tyrone are back. Well, let's see. Can they put a bit of consistency in that run? I'd still have trust issues around Tyrone, but from a Kerry perspective, I think, I think they'll win. They'll have their Division 1 safety in the bag. They'll have Roscommon on the head-to-head. Roscommon could still, after such a marvelous start to the campaign. Now, it's a very unlikely sequence of results, but they could end up, given the way things are panning out in Division 1.
6 points hasn't always meant safety in Division 1.
It has, and this year's, of all years, is one of those years where 6 points could. Now, you'd imagine Donegal are going to struggle, but having said that, let's see what Mayo put out onto the field this weekend, because you could end up with a situation where Donegal might find themselves playing a sort of a shadow version of Mayo, where this is now where starts to become a small bit guesswork, where you don't necessarily how much trust or faith you can put into the integrity around what teams are doing at this point. Are Mayo going to go risk an injury, go up there hammer and tongs, all systems, all guns blazing to try and take Donegal out for 2 points? I'd say Kevin would be cute enough there now and say, do I want to really run? Do I want to risk now losing an Aidan O'Shea or a Matty Ruan? And that, maybe he does, I don't know, but I'd hazard a fairly strong guess that they'd probably still have enough, even though Ballybuffet seems to be a good place for Donegal. They've obviously had a couple of half-decent results up there. Well, they drew with Galway in Letterkenny, and they beat Kerry in Ballybuffet. So if Donegal are to survive it all in Division 1, they're going to need to win this weekend. But so all the fixtures right across the board, I think, are going to be interesting. But it's obviously then very much more veering towards who's kind of facing the trapdoor at the bottom end is where a lot of the focus and attention is going to land.
Absolutely. It does seem like it's a game Donegal have to win really this weekend, David. And as Rory says, there's a chance there will be a slightly weakened, we don't know, a slightly weakened Mayo team, but they're at home. And in their last game, they're away to Roscommon. And if Roscommon do lose and Kerry this weekend, they're going to be going hell for leather to make sure that, they don't want to go from, league finalists elect to relegated. That would not do it for them. And they've shown a lot of form. So this would seem to be the game where Donegal need to pick up 2 points. And in the other game, we got Monaghan and Tyrone. So one of the other teams on 4 points is probably going to remain on 4 points. So Donegal, and after the week they've had, the kind of the revelations coming out around Carl Lacey's departure from the academy role and everything else, Donegal football desperately needs a win.
Yeah, definitely. Going by Mayo, I think Kevin McStay has his mark made. I think if you think about it, they'll have 3 games in the next month. So they are going to rest players, I'd say, and I think that's a great chance for Donegal to pick up a few points. And they have Galway in the last game. I think Roscommon in the last game.
Roscommon away, yeah.
So like they could pick up 2 wins there handy, and then it jumps up to 7 points, which is a huge boost. And like nobody would like to go up to and play in, I don't know, is it on Ballybuffet this weekend?
It is, yeah.
Ballybuffet. Yeah, so it's going to be a tough battle. I fancy Donegal to pip it. I think if
the weather
Mayo...
forecast is poor, it's meant to be lashing rain. It lashes rain in Ballybuffet at the best of times. I would hazard a guess the TG Car cameramen are already battening down hatches.
Get the windscreen wipers installed on the cameras.
Yeah, go on.
Just to say that if Tyrone don't get a result in Clonus, which is obviously very possible, Monaghan in Clonus playing the likes of Tyrone, that's when they come into their own. This is Monaghan's time to shine now, much like Clare, backs against the wall. People talking about relegation. I'm not even talking about Monaghan getting relegated because it's more surefire than any short odds bet at Cheltenham this week that Monaghan will not get relegated now, I don't think. So let's say Monaghan beat Tyrone this weekend, which I fully expect they will. That means Tyrone are playing Armagh in the last game, probably needing the win. That's, the end. This round of the league can seem a little bit hard to predict, etc., because some of the teams at the top maybe don't have so much to play for. But you're looking ahead to the last round. Like I think whatever way the cards fall this weekend, David, there's going to be absolute fireworks in the last round, which is great.
Oh, there will be. There's going to be a mayhem around the place. I presume, I fancy Kerry actually to make the playoff. I think they'll play Mayo and the All-Ireland qualifier, or the National League final. I think that's going to be the game, because you've got Kerry playing Roscommon at home and they've got Galway away. I just fancy Kerry there. The 2-week break might stand them as well. They might get a few players back and a bit of freshness. But it's just going to be carnage. I think 6 points, you're not going to be safe with 6 points. I think one team is going to go down on 6 points for definite, because if you'd fancy Tyrone are going to probably win a game. Kerry are going to win a game. Donegal probably win it. Yeah, I think Donegal are a bit under pressure.
Without shadow of a doubt.
That's it, you see, and that brings Roscommon back into it and Galway back into it. So it's it could be
the calculators are going to be out in the last day anyway. That's for sure.
But Roscommon, if Roscommon Galway lose this weekend, Kerry, Tyrone win, you've got 4 teams on 6 points. So it's going to be mayhem. But that's the greatness of the National League. It's end to end. It's from game 1 to game 7. It's going to be interesting.
Absolutely. And Rory, shout out to our friends in Division 3, Rugby Schmugby. We don't care. We're playing all our games on the Saturday. And from Cavan, 2:00, you get home for the rugby. From Anna Westmeath, Brewster Park, 6 p.m. The hardcore Gales at that one. Similarly, Tipperary v Offaly at 6 p.m. There probably will be actually already quite a sizable Offaly contingent at that match, you'd imagine, after the week that was. And then down Longford, Park Esler at 7 p.m. So shout out there to all those involved in Offaly football. I haven't heard the game's not going ahead, so I presume it is going ahead. I think the footballers want to play it.
Ahead, yeah, it'll have to, because when else are you going to play it if you don't play it this weekend is the problem. I think that's kind of, look, that's where we are. And
Offaly don't need to play it. They're safe from relegation at least, and probably out of the running for promotion. But Tipperary obviously are they're in the mix the weeds now, so they need to play the match.
They need it. They definitely need the 2 points. Look, it'll be. I think they've pulled a couple of those fixtures forward to 2:00. In fairness to them, on the Saturday, I think they obviously they had the cop on to realise that it would affect it if they went directly up against the rugby. Because look, let's be honest, every man and his dog's going to be watching that. I actually think, in many ways, one of the most interesting fixtures. I don't know if there's a huge amount riding on it, but one of the most interesting fixtures of the whole weekend is the renewal of acquaintances between
Derby?
between Armagh and Galway. And given it's now in the aptly named Box It Athletic Grounds after what happened last year in the All-Ireland quarter-final. I think that's an awful shame that that's basically going directly up against the rugby. It's what is quite interesting though is it's the one thing that I would generally look out for in any kind of contentious fixture that might crop up on a given weekend.
Who's the ref?
Who's the ref? And of course, and of course, Goff is after being sent up. Goff is being sent up there, so it's a case of okay, in case of emergency, break glass, like let's send him up.
The man with the eyes in the back of his head, let him look after that one. Yeah.
It should be a good game of football, that though. Like that's the real shame. I think it'll be a fantastic game of football. It's two really good football and sides. There's loads of connections there as well. Obviously, Joe Kernan and the Kernans in general, I think it'll have a big crowd, despite the rugby. Because they're just so fanatical, and there's such a good wave of good vibes in behind Armagh football at the minute, and it'll be one that should be a really good contest it's obviously on RTÉ TV as well. But yeah,
you can watch it back on the player afterwards. We won't tell people you're not allowed to watch it. You can watch it on playback. Just don't.
It's not every year the old rugby lads are going for a Grand Slam. So at home in Dublin against England on Paddy's weekend.
All right, calm down, Rory. This is a GA podcast. Rugby podcast was recorded yesterday.
It could be over by half time anyway, so you can flick over to them.
Exactly.
There you go, David. That's the confidence. I will just mention Division 4 before we go, lads. Laois and Sligo locked on 8 points. Wicklow on 7, who are going down to Wexford on Saturday evening. And so it does look like it's Leitrim on 6 points as well. So it looks like Laois and Sligo's kind of promotion to lose, shall we say? But you got Waterford, London, Carlow, Sligo on the Saturday, and then on the Sunday you have Leitrim and Laois. So that's how Division 4.
One thing that struck me about that, I love playing around with sort of imaginary scorelines and how I think things might pan out in certain games. And one thing that struck me about Division 4, now it may not be the case, and sorry Mikey about Wexford, but it could be a weird quirk where you have 4 away wins in that division on that weekend. And I think I was looking back now, I couldn't necessarily be certain, but it wouldn't happen that often.
No, it won't. It won't happen this weekend either, I'll tell you.
But it's tight. The two Division 3 and Division 4, they're fairly tight. Like there's, I suppose, like it all depends on Westmeath and Fermanagh this weekend. If Westmeath beat Fermanagh, brings another 2 teams back into Down and Offaly. They'll be all on 8 points going into the final game. And if Fermanagh win against Westmeath, it looks like themselves and Cavan will be promoted, really. So it's a dogfight down there, and it's some battles.
Absolutely. I think when we reconvene on Monday here, Rory, I think things should be a lot clearer. They won't be resolved, but they'll be a lot clearer, because with 2 games left, it's just because it's a 7-game league. It's just like it really doesn't. The tea leaves don't settle until you're down to the last game. It's very hard to make heads nor tails of it. You have a good idea who's not going to get promoted, but as for who's going to get promoted, who's going to get relegated, very difficult to tell.
Yeah, everybody's fighting for something. So it's great. It's great to see.
It's fantastic. It is.
Okay, well, David, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll be back in a moment to talk to Ursula about the hurling weekend.
He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh!
Welcome back. We've been joined by Ursula Jacob to look ahead to the final round of Allianz Hurling League games. A nation holds its breath. How are you doing, Ursula?
I'm good, thanks, Mikey.
It's fair to say, Ursula, we haven't been too enamoured with this league, and that's not just me with my Wexford hat on. I think this league hasn't really captured the imagination. I don't know how much it ever does. I think it does more than this year. This year there just seems to be a lot of damp squibs of games and a lot of one-sided games, and it's a general feeling that nobody's really too worried about who lifts the cup at the end of it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I just think you're right. There has maybe been a flatness to the league. Obviously, managers and teams are at different stages of their training. New managers that have come in, like Pat Ryan, obviously and Derek Ling are wanting to maybe make this impression and get momentum and confidence going. You can see that in some of the performances for Cork and Kilkenny. Even Liam Cahill with Tipperary, they're unbeaten in the league. So you can see the focus for some counties is slightly different than others. Even take Wexford, I'm sure they hadn't got the idea to go out and lose games, but they definitely do seem to have a different focus than this time last year. Darragh Egan was in his first year last year with Wexford, and maybe he felt the pressure that they needed to go all out and try win every game in the league, and they did so successfully in the group stages last year. But this year, I suppose he's spoken time again that they're trying to build a squad, they're trying to get ready for championship and maybe peak at a different stage in the year. So I suppose that's what the condensed season does as well. Obviously, if you look at Limerick, they're a lot further on than they were this time last year. So I suppose winning the league for them a couple of years ago didn't do them any harm either. So it's how you deal with it. And, you could see the effects of Waterford winning last year. It had a negative impact on them. So it's trying to find that balance, and that can be very difficult. And I suppose it's getting closer and closer to championship now. And the big thing and the common trend within all teams at the moment seems to be injuries. And that's a huge worry for so many managers. If you look right across the squads, probably Limerick are the only ones that don't really have any major injuries, but nearly every other team has seemed to pick up.
And they're the ones who could absorb injuries.
And they've probably got the strength and depth.
Yeah.
But I look at Wexford, Waterford, Tipperary, you can name them all. They're all down some big names. And that's the worry now going into championship. Will they be back? And it's the race against time.
Yeah. It's interesting, Rory, isn't it, that the new managers, Cork, Tipperary, Kilkenny in particular, are the ones who are performing well and seem to be taking the league seriously, because they're the managers you would think more than any other would be experimenting with tactics and with personnel. Yet they're the ones who are kind of, they're getting the results. So it make you wonder whether players are more motivated playing for a new manager and taking the league more seriously.
Yeah, to be fair, if you look at it, Derek Ling, Pat Bryan, Liam Cahill, they're all in their first year with the teams. But in fairness to them, they are experimenting. They're not just going back to the tried and tested. Like Pat Bryan every day has given new guys a chance, and the really positive thing for Cork is that it's different guys, it's young guys that are standing up every day. It was Padraig Power, it was Cormac Bozang the last day getting the goals. Declan Dalton, I know he's been there and thereabouts. Tommy O'Connell, these guys. So I suppose he's built up that relationship from being over the under-20, under-21 successful teams. Same with Derek Ling. Liam Cahill seems to get the best out of his players, and there's huge respect there for Liam Cahill. But I would say that they probably have experimented just as much as any of the other teams.
Yeah, that's Ursula is absolutely spot on. I think they have all got different things. Kilkenny were forced to shuffle their pack because they were missing the Ballyhale contingent early on. You've got Liam Cahill trying to come in and put a new imprint onto what he wants to do from a Tipperary perspective, and they're all trying to impress. And as Ursula mentioned, Cork have definitely shuffled the deck in terms of giving some of the younger players. One player that I was watching back again in the earlier rounds, he missed the last day. He didn't tog out the last day. I think he was carrying a little bit of a knock. And I think he might break into the championship team as Conor O'Callaghan. He's very impressive cornerback, potentially wing back as well. Like, he was another guy worth keeping an eye on. But just in relation to the league, Mikey, and to go back to your initial question in relation to where we are, I heard TJ Ryan mention, and I thought it was a very good point, and it was a very good suggestion in terms of incentivizing the league. It's very difficult to create a promotion relegation scenario because you are dealing with a sort of a set group of teams, and you don't want to be really relegating anybody or putting that kind of pressure. But what you definitely do want to try and do is to try and incentivize winning it. And TJ made the suggestion that if you open back up 4 quarterfinals as opposed to 2, which is what we only have in hurling, and if you were to give the winners of the league safe passage to a quarterfinal, whether that be a seeded team, whether they fall back down the pecking order, you seed Munster and Leinster champions 1 and 2, league champions 3. I'm sure there's ways of doing it. I think that's a really good idea, and it is something to tease out Who's going to tease that out on behalf of hurling? That's another question in the corridors of power, which, you know, we've had this go before. But I do think it's something that maybe should be looked at if we are serious about trying to inject some level of integrity back into the competition.
Well, we had it a few years ago, and so pretty much the Big 8, Big 10, whatever it is in hurling these days, they decided that the old 1A, 1B was too competitive. There was too much jeopardy. There was too many teams dying not to get out of 1A and too many teams killing each other to get out of 1B. It did Limerick no harm, as we mentioned here a few weeks ago, that that team kind of was forged in the bear pit that is 1B, which they could never get out of for some reason. So hurling, the top hurling counties don't want the league to be competitive. I think that's kind of the nux of the nub of the problem, isn't it?
And that's it, because I suppose they're using the league as the experimentation, trying out new things, their new styles. It allows players who maybe are coming back from injury to give them a game that they're not under as much pressure or as intensity as a championship game. And again, you know, you can understand, you know, when you're a manager of any of these teams, you're selfishly wanting them to peak at the right time. Yeah, us as spectators, we want these all out exciting, just feasts of hurlings every weekend, but that's not the way it's going to happen, because at the end of the day, most of their focus is going to be towards, you know, the round robin of the championship, because that's so intense, that's so, you know, consuming, and that's really all that matters. Whether we want to put whatever spin on it or not, whoever wins the league, we won't be thinking about it too much come championship, as we saw last year. And, you know, Waterford unfortunately suffered that fate. And I suppose that's maybe in the back of some teams' minds as well, because what happened, Waterford, we were all blowing Waterford up saying, oh my God, they're going to go all out and win the championship now. And they didn't even get out of Munster. So I would feel that has had a knock on some other counties this year, because they're wary of that happening more so than like Liam Cahill is probably really, really freshly in his mind still that this could happen again. So I suppose that's why maybe certain teams are holding back that little bit much, because they don't want that focus and attention on them now, because then the pressure is heaped on him coming into championship.
Yeah. If Liam Cahill is doing that, Rory, he's hiding it pretty well by going unbeaten so far with Tipperary, isn't he? And he'll guarantee the league semi-final. And this is where it does get tricky for most of the teams, because you got a league semi-final. It's a match you probably want to win that you're in it, and then you're into a league final, and then your build up to the round robin gets pretty tight. Very tight. And as Ursula mentioned, what you certainly don't want then is injuries to key players at that stage. So like your team selection is probably going to be key, crucial. I don't really know what way that will plan out. I think it'll be tricky for them. I mean, the way things look at the minute, it looks like it's Cork. Like as things stand now, this is obviously before the final round of fixtures, but as things stand, it's Cork versus Kilkenny, Limerick Tip, isn't it? Isn't it 1 versus 2 and crisscrossing? So does Liam Cahill go into a league semi-final against Limerick? Yeah, all guns blazing. I mean, I think it's a fairly unwritten rule at this point. If you're going to beat Limerick, make sure you do it when it counts. You know, like you don't want to be beating Limerick, you know, when it doesn't matter. And but at the same time, so Clare and Brian Loam played that to perfection there a few weeks ago.
Yeah. You know, let's see. Yeah, that could have been a major trump card. Like, and I think they'll have their own issues this weekend, because obviously Cork are going up to Ennis on Sunday, and Cork are up in Ennis for that Munster game again. And Cork have a very poor record in Ennis of late, and certainly in the last number of years. So again, difficult to read.
They didn't have to play there in the old days, did they? Really?
No. It was always Thurles.
Yeah.
But even last year in Thurles, I think Clare won comfortably in the championship, and I think in the end it might have only been 3 or 4 points, but I think Clare were much the better side on the day. So I think it'll be very interesting in terms of team selection right across the board. Shamie Cal now looks like it's 6 to 8 weeks. Now, 6 to 8 weeks for a ligament. I would say that's just Munster's campaign kaput. Because even if he was to be physically fit, as in able-bodied. He's not going to be match fit to take part in the final couple of rounds. So I'd say you're saying sayonara to Shamey until probably the All-Ireland series, if Tipperary are lucky enough to be one of the 3 teams that get out of it. So that's one of the really, I suppose, sad aspects. Could you imagine if Tipperary didn't get out? And look, Shamey's not a young man. He's not going to mind me saying this. That could potentially have been the last time we've seen Shamey Callan in a Tipperary jersey.
Yeah. Ursula, before we get on, just look at a few of the games briefly. There's only a couple of games really. Unfortunately, one of them is Limerick and Wexford has something riding on it, because Limerick actually need to win it, not lose it, to get into the league semi-final if that's what they want. But I wanted to ask you, during your all-conquering days with Wexford, what was the approach to the Camogie League? Was it very much a tune-up shop, or was that a coveted trophy that every team wanted to win?
It was pretty similar to the hurling side of things, if I'm being honest. Now, I was lucky enough, I won a couple of league titles, but again, a lot of the league was down to experimentation, giving girls a run, getting certain players up to match fitness. There wasn't a whole emphasis on winning it, because, to be honest, the championship was completely separate, and that was what the focus was. So it was very similar to the way like the hurlers approach it, the way the hurling managers approach it. And you know, that's rightly so, because at the end of the day, all that matters is championship. But yeah, Wexford's game against Limerick now on Sunday probably couldn't come at a worse time for Wexford in some ways, because, you know, although they had a much improved performance last week against Cork, as I already mentioned, the big concern from Wexford now is the number of injuries and big players that are injured at the moment. So I feel that Wexford are going to be going down to this game very weakened, and they'll probably be ending the league on a disappointing note, like, you know, in saying that they could be finishing the league only beating Westmeath. So that's not great for confidence or momentum or anything going into championship. But as I said, I think Dara's focus definitely is slightly different than last year. But my main thing is, you know, Wexford can't afford to be without these players, because you saw the impact of having Lee Chin play a full 70 minutes. He was brilliant last week. He covered so much ground. He was involved in so much play. And you need Lee Chin, you need Rory O'Connor getting a starting game ahead of championship, because it's very hard to just be thrown into a championship game without after playing too many.
Especially when it's Galway and Salt Hill. Yeah, you know, so as you said, going to Galway for the first round of the Leinster Championship is not when you want to get your first game of the year. So I'd be hoping someone like Rory O'Connor, if he's fit enough, will get a full 70 minutes into him on Sunday. Yeah. On the other side, Rory, it is an embarrassment of riches now at this stage. We've known about this Limerick Academy for years. Obviously, its fruits have already come to bear, and, you know, 4 All-Irelands, etc. But like, the fact it does remind you about the Dublin footballers, you know, 7-8 years ago, where you were kind of looking at it saying, this is never going to end. Now, we know from experience Limerick's population is much smaller than Dublin's. It will end, but they are going through something of an insane purple patch, where you've got like Shane O'Brien, Micheál Houlihan, Donegal O'Donnell, Cathal O'Neill and David Reedy looking to get into the forward line, where Keane Lynch and Peter Casey didn't play last year. So you've got 8 lads there trying to get into the All-Ireland winning forward division of 6, and they've got competition in the defence as well, where they've without doubt got the strongest sextet there is already. It's terrifying, and also difficult for John Kiley. There's a lot of, we mentioned it here before, that's a lot of lads to keep happy, isn't it, Rory?
Very, very much so. But I mentioned this to you before, Mikey, about Mayo's A's versus B's. I'd say if Limerick charged for training, they could easily charge a tenner and people would pay it, I'd say, to go in and watch their A's versus B's. No, not a bother. Could you imagine what that half hours of that half hour hurling is like every night in training? I mean, the privilege to be able to be in there as a manager watching it, and because I'd imagine they're just absolutely like flaking all sorts of stuff out of each other, because it's so, like, the competition is so intense and so fierce. Now, I'd say he probably still has a really good handle on his starting 15, or certainly I'd say there's 12 of his starting 15 will be pretty much nailed down, and he'll have his the Garrod Hagerty's, Kyle Hayes, Cian Lynch's, Declan Hannon's, Nicky Quaid's, the Morrisseys, Aaron Gillan, Shamie Flanagan. They're not going to be shifted, but there might be a couple of spots around the edges that, that fellas will probably look and say, if I really push it here in training, I might get in. And then I suppose if you come to the match day scenario and things aren't working, unlike an awful lot of other managers, when he turns around and looks at the bench, it's like it's dripping with gold. I mean, what'll I pick here from my lovely selection box? So it's I think it's a fantastic position for Limerick to be in. They've put the hard work in. They should be commended for that. They're in the middle of their golden period. I think that also should be commended. Every county has one. We've seen it before with different counties down through the years. I mean, there are some of us that probably thought Kilkenny's era would never have ended, and it did. Limerick's will end as well at some point.
Down the line.
Yeah, at some point. It may not be this year, but it could. You just don't know on a given day. Like a lot of that, we mentioned a lot of their mainstays. A lot of those lads do have a lot of hurling done now, but look, it doesn't look like the machine is coming to a halt anytime soon. And I think from a Wexford perspective, to go down to the Gaelic grounds on Sunday, I think it's a really good challenge, because what you're effectively doing is you're measuring yourself against the standard bearers, and you'll know when you come out of it. Like, I think the important thing for Wexford is don't get a pasting. And if they can go in, be competitive, they lose by 6 or 7, they could probably say, yeah, look, we can take this from it. We're not the first team this year that maybe will come on the back end of a bad beating off Limerick. I mean, we certainly won't be the last, but it is important for them to try and build on, I felt, what was an outstanding display last weekend in terms of the spirit and heart, competitiveness that they showed, and to try and push that on again. Their hand may be forced somewhat, because we saw Matthew O'Hanlon, Conor MacDonald and Damien Reck all go off, and obviously they're 3 big players. But I do think it's an opportunity as well. That's kind of the way you're going to have to look at these things at this stage. Like, this is a chance for you to go in and test yourself against the best. And if
they tested themselves against Clare and it didn't go so well.
Yeah, but like, if you can match up well in some way, shape or form against Limerick on Sunday, I would say you should be heading to Salt Hill then, without much fear in your heart.
Yeah, it's too depressing to talk about it anymore. So the other game which has something riding on it, Ursula, I suppose, is in Group B, where Kilkenny travel to Nolan Park to take on Waterford. So there's a good start for Derek Ling's team anyway. They're the latest team to benefit from Walsh Park's development, so they get to play their away game against Waterford at home. They're a point ahead in the table, but if Waterford win, they get into a semi-final. A lot of those Waterford players now might want to advance in the Allianz League, like they'd want a hole in the head, but at the same time it's a match against their great rivals Kilkenny, coming off the back of a bruising encounter against Tipperary. Davy Fitzgerald doesn't, these are the kind of matches Davy loves, even if it's in the league. And Waterford haven't spared the timber thus far in the league, and I don't think they're going to do it in the final game.
Yeah, and as you said, Kilkenny are very lucky to get a home game for their final match against Waterford. But look, even listening to Derek Ling speak about after their win against Dublin last week, he does seem to have a focus and an emphasis on wanting to continue to win in the league, and I think he possibly would like to get to the semi-final and possibly a final, because he's new in. He wants to create that winning habit. He wants to put his own stamp on this Kilkenny team, and you can see huge positives in this Kilkenny team, and none more so than like Billy Drennan and how he's developed over the last 3-4 games in the league. Now it'll be a different test on Sunday against Waterford. Waterford are coming off a big enough defeat to Tipperary last week, and Davy Fitz, he kind of sheepishly afterwards was saying, this is where we want to be, and you know, I don't think he was too bothered by it, but still to be certain aspects he wouldn't be happy with. You know, defensively, how they leaked some of those goals and how they set up will be very, very disappointing. Discipline again, you know, getting another player sent off. Injury-wise, they're down another couple of players. So Waterford have probably, you know, Waterford probably are going into this game in a funny position because, yeah, they'll want to massively improve on their performance last week against Tipperary. But I don't know, does Davy want to go all out either, showing his full card? Knowing Davy, yeah, he'll be there on the line roaring and shouting on Sunday. But I just think maybe Kilkenny might want this more on Sunday.
Yeah, that's interesting, Rory, because I guess it comes back to that new manager thing perhaps a little bit, that, yeah, a league semi-final could suit Kilkenny and winning's a habit and all that, a habit they are used to under Brian Cody.
Well, it'll definitely suit Kilkenny this year because from a new manager's perspective, the more games you get, the better, especially when you're trying to get a handle on some of the players that you've been across when you were under 20 manager and you're trying to blend them in with some of the more older players that obviously are still there going back the last 8, 9, 10 years.
It's not a huge overhaul though, is there, Rory? You know,
not a huge number, but Kilkenny have always been like that, even going back right back to the very beginning of Brian Cody's time. Like, I mean, it's very, very rare that a young fella, 18, 19, 20, in the way that Pat Ryan doesn't seem to be too bothered with throwing young lads in. Kilkenny generally wait until you're a small bit more mature into your 21s, 22s before they throw you in. They don't tend to trust fellas until they maybe develop a bit more physically before you go in and you kind of learn the Kilkenny way. But I think from his point of view, it's a good position for him to be in because the chances are he's got potentially 1, 2, 3. He's 3 league games left. They're going to be against all Munster opposition. So he doesn't have to worry about Galway or Dublin or Wexford or anybody else figuring them out in the short term. So I think he's probably the manager in the best position from here to have a real cut off this league title. And yeah, I think they'll win. I think they'll win on Sunday. And I think that'll potentially, depending on, now Tipperary will probably win as well, you would imagine, given they're playing Antrim. But you know, you just wouldn't know what could happen up there. It's in Corrigan Park and stranger things have happened. But yeah, I think it's a good position for Derek Ling. He you know, he's got Waterford and he potentially will have Cork and then potentially maybe Limerick. I think that's ideal preparation for the championship for him. And I think he'll want to keep it going.
Okay, so a couple of games to note this weekend. Before we go, Ursula, I just wanted to get your opinion on the civil war brewing in Camogie. This is the shorts versus skorts with the Thomas McCartan's Club in London have launched the shorts, not skorts campaign ahead of Congress. You obviously have played all your career in skorts. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, or do you think it's time to revolutionise Camogie dress?
Yeah, well, look at as you just said, like I played all my career in a skirt, and it's probably the unpopular opinion to say this, but I never overly had a problem in wearing the skirt. I'm very open to listening to people saying about wearing shorts if that's the way that girls feel more comfortable, and I think that's the big thing with it. Girls feeling more comfortable playing and training because we all train in our shorts. So I suppose the point is, why can't we just play the games in our shorts as well? I know some people would have a view that, the skirts look more aesthetically better than a shorts. But to me, no, I wouldn't agree with that necessarily. But look, it might happen. I think it might pass because there is a lot of opinion out there that maybe we need to move with the times and just wear the shorts and be completely in line kind of with the hurling gear, a shorts and a jersey, just like the men. But as I said, I never had an issue in wearing a skirt. So Did
it crop up before? And I think this was a motion before. And was there a sense that the players were quite happy with the status quo at that time? Now that could be a good few years ago.
Yeah, now that you say it, I think it did. Now I think that was a number of years ago.
Yeah,
And again, look, I'm not.
And times change.
Yeah, 100%. And look, if more girls feel that they prefer to wear shorts, and players at the end of the day are the people that will be wearing them. So it's important to listen to the players as well.
Exactly.
And I think comfort is a huge thing. And I definitely know that every single camogie player out there train in their shorts. So none of us go to a training session and wear our skorts training. So the only times you actually wear the skorts is actual matches. And even very often when we play challenge games, girls wear their shorts, because again, it's down to comfort. So look, if the majority feel that comfort wise shorts are better, why not move with the times? You know, I definitely think it's cropped up a number of times in the last few years. So why not go with it?
And can we just call it hurling?
Yeah.
Well, now
I'd be happy enough with that.
The LGFA held their Congress a couple of weeks ago, and as always, there was a motion to say, can we not change the name to the Women's Gaelic Football Association? And that was defeated, as always. People may notice on the RTÉ website it's called Women's Football. That was a decision I've made, and I have yet to have anybody complain about that, but they won't change the name. So the chances of camogie being called hurling in the next while, I think, slim enough, unfortunately.
Oh, Jesus.
That's a debate for another day. We'll leave it at that. Ursula, thank you very much. There's 2 football matches on the television on Saturday. Your cup does runneth over. Don't bother with that rugby match over on the other channel. No. You don't want to be watching that. You want to be watching Meath v Dublin from Park Talton, and you want to be watching Armagh v Galway from the Boxit Athletic Grounds. They're the matches. Keep across all the other GA on Saturday and Sunday Sport on RTÉ Radio 1 and via the RTÉ website and the news app. So thank you, Ursula, thank you, Rory, and thank you to David earlier, and we'll catch you again on Monday. Enjoy your Paddy's Day weekend.
From this, how much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh, holy Moses.